The Gauteng Department of Transport and Road Infrastructure is calling for the regulation of driving schools. It says the move is an effort to curb corruption and increase accountability in the industry. Here to talk to us about this, I'm joined by the Gauteng MEC for Public Transport and Road Infrastructure, Jacob Mamabolo, as well as Robert Chandler, who's the Managing Director of the Southern African Institute of Driving Instructors. To be a part of the conversation tonight, send us your thoughts and questions on 072-110-5584. Otherwise, you can tweet us tonight at Newzroom 405. MEC, good evening. Robert, good to have you with us tonight here on In Focus. MEC, road carnage in South Africa, astronomical due to some part because of low standards of driver training, poor law enforcement, misuse of alcohol and drugs, poor road engineering and bad attitudes. The list could probably be a little bit more than that, but we'll confine ourselves to that for today. But you're particularly wanting to zoom in on the space of the professionalization and standardization of the driving school industry. Now, driving schools are not regulated in South Africa at this particular point. It's been years trying to get that particular sector regulated. Amendments are currently before Parliament. I think they were gazetted in 2019, if I'm not mistaken. Why is it taking so long to complete this process?
Well, firstly, good evening to you. Let me greet your guest, Mr. Robert Chandler, and good evening to all the viewers. So the most important part is we as a province of Gauteng have put before the people of the province a program, a vision, a roadmap we call Growing Gauteng Together Through Smart Mobility, which seeks to attend to the issues that you have raised. You might be aware that we are doing smart mobility weekends. We are fixing potholes across the province. We're looking at various issues, and now we're saying it is important that those who are entrusted with skilling, with training, road users, that themselves be properly checked, regulated, and we work with them as partners, but bring transparency and visibility in line with the principles of our country's constitution into the driving school industry. We have held various meetings with them, and the issue that you are raising about why has it taken so long, and I guess in this case you're talking to the policy process at legislative level. I think those matters are fairly within the purview of national government, and I think they'll be dealt with appropriately. But for us here in the province, we feel we can't continue with a very important sector or industry that really trains and educate people that are going to be on the road without them being verified, being checked, with issues of corruption, bogus driving schools. Anyone can wake up tomorrow and say, I'm running a driving school. Allegations of bribes, of corruption, of proxy driving schools that are, owned apparently by officials and government officials at different levels, including allegedly in law enforcement. Yeah. So just like we've seen with the taxi industry report. So what we're saying is we need to know who is running this industry. Are they qualified to run the industry? Are there basic checklists in place? Are there standards that they have to comply with? So that we can also work and support them and make sure that we protect this very important industry from crooks and criminals that are really doing damage to the industry. So it is in that context that we believe we can't leave this industry to itself. Yeah. We need to do something quite serious.
What is going to empower you, though, MEC? Because, as I mentioned, there is no legislation currently in place that requires driving schools or driving schools instructors to comply with really any standard. Hence, you're saying anybody can wake up tomorrow with a driver's license and say, I am going to be an instructor. Now, there is no obligation, even as far as I understand, for those driving schools to register anywhere. So how are you going to enforce that?
For us in the province is that whilst the legislative process is on, but there are certain things we can leverage on. The very first one, and most importantly, is that the driving school entrepreneurs and business people have said to us, let us set up a structure, sort of a council in the province, voluntary associations by themselves, and we create a very good database of who they are. We know that they need access to our facilities. We will clearly stipulate, if you are not on our database, if you have not gone through a rigorous and intense process that we will put in place with the partners that we have appointed to help us on this, you can't come anywhere close to linger around our facilities. So they need access to our facilities. That's very much important. We'll deny them that. The second issue that gives us leverage is that, with the difficulties of their clients getting booking slots, many difficulties they have, we can open corporate accounts with them, be able to make sure that those that have been cleared, those that will work like banks, being authorized financial service providers, that is people that would have received a certificate from us saying you meet maximum requirements, we will be able to support them by making sure that we give support to services that they need from us as government. And those who refuse to be open, to be transparent, to open their books and for us to know who they are, then those ones are not legitimate. And
therefore they will be denied access to your facilities. Rob, you've been at this, from what I see, since 1957, trying to professionalize and standardize the industry. You really have a handful of people that you've allowed to come into your association. Tell me what the interventions are that you've put in place to ensure that instructors and the driving schools adhere to a certain degree of standard, and what is that standard?
Okay, I think a lot has been said, and I think before I get to that, I just want to say there is a basic registration requirement for driving instructors. The problem is it's not enforced. There is something there that is called the old regulation 250 that's still, in terms of a transitional provision, it says that we have to be basically we have to be registered with the province of the place where we operate. So yes, there is a minimum requirement, but it's never enforced, and this is where the problem comes in. There's a total lack of enforcement, and there always has. And obviously, as the MEC says rightfully, this has been done because of the corruption around. It's opened up a doorway, and we support, as SAIDI, we support regulation. We support qualifications, and we push our members. And one of the first things we do is we don't accept a member who does not provide us with a provincial registration. We've actually turned away members. Over and above that, we want a police clearance. We want the person to be a licensed and registered business. They must have either a CIPC business registration. Alternatively, they must be registered as a sole trader. We're not dealing with people that are, which we like to term fly-by-nights. So those are our minimum requirements. We respond to all complaints about our members. And even if they are not our members, we will advise a member of the public how to deal with these members. There's a lot of fraud, misrepresentation, where people will say, we do a code C1 driver training, give us 9,000 Rand. The people beg and borrow from relatives and that, hand over the money, and the person turns up with a VW Polo to do a heavy-duty driver training.
Yeah. I'm going to come back to that. I need to take a break, but I want to come back. I want to know, how do I know that the driver package that is being offered is actually legit? In a moment, the MEC for Transport and Road Infrastructure in Gauteng, Jacob Mamabolo, as well as the SAID's Managing Director, Robert Chandler. We look at the professionalization and standardization within the driving licensing space. And with us, the MEC for Transport and Road Infrastructure in Gauteng, working really hard to rid this sector of corruption. So then, MEC, my understanding is that when the legislative work is complete, in a sense, it would mean that whoever wants to get into this space would need to apply to the MEC of the province, and the MEC will then have to look at whether they meet the requirements, and then give them that particular registration. But how is that process going to work with the council in place?
Yeah, so just before, let me paint a very sad picture here about what we are hearing from the driving schools. You have got legitimate people, entrepreneurs that have invested money, resources, are training people to drive almost, if I'm right, I'll be corrected by Robert, almost a month, 30 days or so, on the one hand. On the other hand, you have got people employed by government, paid by the taxpayer, sitting in positions of power, allegedly using those positions to set up bogus driving schools and give the driving license, learner license off the shelf. And in that case, it means, people who have to go through this painful process of, or difficult process of 30 days will then now say, oh, driving school, it's a waste of time going there. It's easy to get it off the shelf. This is the big problem that we have to confront and deal with, protect honest, legitimate business investments in this sector. How this will work is that, remember that the legislation will set broad guidelines, policy, but we still need operational systems in place to do that. One of them that we are looking at is a very credible database, which will, in terms of how it functions and work, we will be working with the council, which will represent the driving school industry. They will be represented, they'll be able to make an input, and how this database is working. We will be able to set up clear, credible guidelines of how we are going to work on this. We have approached Armscore, and they have got a company there that's called Girotech, which is a state-owned institution partnering with CSIR. They are going to help us to say, what is a proper, legitimate, credible driving school? What are the basic things over and above registration being on our database that it must meet, and that has to be within the law? Secondly, we need members of the public to know, if I am going to this driving school, has it been checked? Has it been vetted? Is it a proper, legitimate driving school? Do the inspectors who are training people how to drive, do they have driver licenses themselves? Are they properly qualified? Do they have the necessary competencies and skills to do what they are supposed to be doing? Yeah. So in that way, we are building a solid base on which to deal with carnage on the road, because I am on record, I've said it very loud and clear, and I can repeat it, that driving is a very important science to be understood. Buying it off the shelf, it's a problem, and you can see with a high rate of accidents, you can clearly see that many people still need to be assisted. Big companies, when you buy one of these multi-million worth of vehicles, they take you into an advanced driving to help you drive and protect the value of the car that you are driving. So it tells you that we still have a long way to go to make sure that we up the standards to teach and educate people how to drive.
So does that mean, in essence, that all driving schools existing and those that wish to exist in the future will now have to go through this particular process of registration and grading? And what about, for example, members of the Southern African Institute of Driving Instructors? How do you accommodate them in this process?
Well, as I said, that we have brought in experts and practitioners in the space. They know the legislative space. They know what is going on in the industry. We have agreed that they will give us an instrument and mechanism that will accommodate what exists. But what we need is transparency to say, if you want to write a driving school in Gauteng, these are the minimum things you must comply with, or maximum you must comply with. For example, infrastructure, the facilities themselves have to meet certain requirements. The instructors and wherever they have been trained, associations they belong to, we still need to vet and check them and be sure that they are really qualified. So there will be stakeholder engagements, discussions, but all what we're saying is let the public and everybody know, if you want to invest as a business person in the driving school environment, these are the requirements. This is what the law says. But we as a province, given the challenges that we have, we believe this is again a set of operational requirements that you have to meet in order to be accredited as a facility for driving, like it's happening with the banks.
All right.
So we will benchmark with a number of key players and stakeholders, but we need transparency, openness, and clear tools in place that can be leveraged by everybody, and we start this journey with a much more clearer basis so that we solve this problem and solve it better, because I believe education, nothing but education, will help us change behavior on the road over and above other things that can be done, like law enforcement.
How will I spot, Robert, an unregistered or an illegal instructor, and how do I verify that the driving education package being advertised or offered to me is legit?
I think if I can just come back, the MEC has said a lot of things that I actually want to comment on. Now, I want to stress, SIDE supports regulation of the driver training industry. But what is absolutely getting our goat is the fact that decisions are taken. And now I'm hearing a lot of what the MEC says. Some of it's good. Some of it really gets and irritates the driver training industry, the legitimate members. Now, the stakeholders in the industry are not approached about these decisions. We never entertained, and this is where it gets to it. You will always have a look at what happened with the online booking system, and I don't want to dwell on it, but you ended up with some people staging protests and obstructing traffic, which we don't support. But now, out of left wing, there's a company called Armscore, Geratech, and the CSIR that are going to be coming out and telling the industry how to do their work. People that have never had anything in this industry. They don't understand how it works. Now they must come and tell us. They are the specialists. I don't believe that. I don't want to knock the Geratech training and things like that, but I know the industry. I've been in this game for 40 years. And when I see the way people are ignored and sidelined, the problem is the industry always is blamed as where the corruption and the poor standards are. But in this country at the moment, the standard of training is determined by the standard of assessment. And the standard of assessment is absolutely disgusting here in this country at the moment. It's poor. And that is why we have such a slow performance, and that is why we actually turn out bad drivers. There's a lot to be done and to be fixed. I agree with that. But engagement needs to be done with the legitimate players that are currently in the industry. We don't need to be dictated to by an organization that's going to tell us how to run. And strangely enough, I'm not going to mention which one of the three that have been mentioned, but they've actually phoned SIDE to come and tell them how to do the work so they can tell the MEC what is important.
Let's quickly get them
why don't they speak to SIDE?
To respond to that, why would you ignore SIDE, an organization that's been around since 1957, from what I hear, and they've been in this space of standardization?
1975.
Is it 1975? I beg your pardon, yes. 1975. Mixing up my numbers. 1975. Why would you ignore them and not help them participate in this particular process?
You know, I just thought, and maybe we can check with Robert. He has asked me for meetings.
Yes.
I've met with him twice.
Yes, sir.
Already. And I'd like him to confirm that.
Yeah.
And yes, Robert, I've met with you twice and your team. And
yes, he agrees.
we dedicated. Sorry?
He agrees, yes.
Yes. We have dedicated enough time. We never said we're rushing, no time. We went deep into the issues. We agreed to have follow-up meetings. In actual fact, I just said to him, when is our next meeting? And he said, they're working on it. So the point I'm trying to make is, Robert would know, and he has confirmed, we respect them as a stakeholder. We engage with them. We will never impose anyone on them. And the institutions of government that we have, put forward to support this process are institutions that will work with them. They will consult them. We run an open, transparent, consultative process. We're a democratic government. And to that extent, I would like to assure him and his members and all other, members in the driving school industry that we will never impose any solution on them. The reality of the matter is we have agreed. And he says he doesn't support those who protest. It's their right to protest. We have agreed with them. We do need a credible, reputable database. That matter has been agreed upon. We do need to set standards. This came out of the discussions we had with them. So I think to that extent, he might not respect ARMSCO and Girotech, which are internationally recognized institutions in the driving space. He may not have to respect CSIR. This is one of the best world institutions that our country has. And I'm quite confident that working with them, we should be able to put together a credible, reputable, remarkable intervention and solution that will benefit no one and no one else except road users and those who have invested in the industry, and we remove corrupt elements and corrupt practices. So I also just wanted to add quickly, if you permit me, on one point. In this database, we will make it available to the public so that you can know all the registered driving schools. They will have to display their certificates. Like when you enter a bank, the first thing you see is that this is a financially recognized institution mandated to provide the services that it has. Those type of certificates will be available. So I just want to assure Robert that he knows we have met with him, we have interacted with him, we engaged with him. There shouldn't be any doubt that we will continue on that basis.
We're out of time. Gentlemen, appreciate you. Thanks for coming through. Quick look at what you're saying tonight on WhatsApp. Reaction to the conversation today. Here's one from Olani Mkiza saying, licenses are sold in South Africa. This is why we have a high rate of accidents in this country. Traffic police are corrupt. They collude with driver school owners. Evening, Tabo from Pule in Pretoria. I think the department must inspect those who are doing oversight to examiners and the DLTC stations to do their job. All right, we couldn't even get to that conversation, but MEC will bring you back in to talk about the work you're doing, particularly the inappropriate relationships between the examiners and the driving schools themselves and how you're dealing with the DLTCs. I will bring you back for that conversation. That's what